Well, we've already done videos on the first two Smackdown games, so we're back by popular demand with a third entry into the ongoing series, this time looking at WWE Smackdown Just Bring It. This game came out during a time of big change for the WWE, and this was reflected in a variety of changes within the game itself. And we all remember watching that intro and thinking, wow, this game is going to be phenomenal. Just look at those graphics, look at the fluidity of gameplay. Then we got this.
The fans are enjoying this.
I heard that Kane has a devastating chokeslam.
However, trolling aside from THQ, like its predecessors, it wasn't without its fair shares of secrets, cut content, and interesting facts. So be sure to subscribe and click on that notification bell, because today we're looking at 10 of those from Smackdown Just Bring It. Number 1. Missing in Action. When Just Bring It was released back in 2001, the botched invasion storyline was still fresh in the memories of fans. As a result of the invasion, there were also a whole host of new wrestlers that had been added to the roster, some of them making their first appearances in a WWE game with this entry. Two notable ones who weren't, however, were Diamond Dallas Page and Hurricane Helms. This is strange as both of them were shown in the game's ultimate trailer, but at some point along the process, it's evident they were cut before its final release. It's still not clear to this day why this happened, and given how DDP had come firing into the company with a high-profile Undertaker feud, and how Hurricane Helms was considered to be a very good future prospect for his high-flying in-ring work, we can only assume there was either some contractual dispute with THQ, or that the two had heat with someone backstage who wanted to curb their royalties. To be fair, there were rumours that DDP had annoyed some at the time, so this would make some modicum of sense, but the Hurricane, everyone loved him, didn't they? It wasn't the end of the world for completionists anyway, but with a bit of fiddling you could make a decent version of them in the game's Create a Wrestler mode, and just pretend that it was the real thing. Number 2. Picture-in-Picture. Another element which was at one time set to be in the game but was cut out of the final release was picture-in-picture commentary from the Smackdown announce team of Michael Cole and Taz. Yes, in the game's beta or beta version, there were 3D models of the duo sitting at the ringside announce table, and they would occasionally appear in a smaller frame on the bottom of the screen to discuss the match. Although this was removed from the release version, there is an image of this on the back of the game's box. Once again, it's unclear why this was removed from the title, but the best reason we can think of is that WWE never really did the whole picture-in-picture commentary thing the way some other sports do, so it probably looked a bit jarring. Another reason it could be is that the commentators took up too much memory, as this was one of the first wrestling games that could hold 8 wrestlers in the ring at one time. So in order to achieve this, they had to remove the commentators. Number 3. Changing times. This was done due to an ongoing legal dispute with the World Wildlife Fund and Vince McMahon abusing the use of the branding in Europe despite not having the total right to do so. The end result was the company changing things up, but this actually had an effect on Smackdown Just Bring It that many of you likely weren't aware of. The PlayStation Platinum range was well known for including re-releases of particularly popular games at budget prices, with the first 2 entries in the series receiving such a distinction. It was no surprise that the third title would be just as popular, though an issue arose due to the fact that by the time of the game's re-release, the company had already changed names, so it had to be rebranded as WWE Smackdown Just Bring It. This wasn't the only game to do so, as WWF Raw also had the same problem. Number 4. Firsts. As we mentioned previously, with the influx of WCW talent coming into the company around this time, Just Bring It marked the first time many wrestlers appeared in the series. These include Jerry Lynn, Molly Holly, Raven, Rhino, Spike Dudley, Tajiri, and William Regal. Notable by their absence were Invasion standouts like Booker T and Rob Van Dam, as they wouldn't appear until the next edition. This was also the first time the series would feature commentary, which was provided by Michael Cole and Taz, though as we previously mentioned, there was no picture-in-picture analysis as was originally planned. It is a little odd to think that these two were the first to provide commentary for the series, and not Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler, who were in many ways the voices of the company, but then again, this is a SmackDown game and not a Raw one after all. Just Bring It was also the first game to be capable of holding 8 wrestlers in the ring at one time, introducing 4v4 battles as well as 8-man battle royals. It also marked the debut of wrestlers having multiple finishing moves and allowed players to finally edit in-game characters' movesets to their own specifications. One final first worth noting here is that we finally got full entrances. Number 5. Keep on Rolling. Yeah, this is the WWE game that famously first featured Fred Durst as part of the deal he'd made with the company for letting them use Rollin' as The Undertaker's theme song. Unlocking him was relatively simple, as all you had to do was play through the game's slobber knocker mode as the American Badass and rack up more than 15 wins. After that, you could choose Durst and his bizarre lowrider themed entrance in the main game. It wasn't the only unlockable, of course. You could get Michael Cole by meeting him in story mode and accepting his challenge. Mick Foley was unlockable by going through a very specific set of options in story mode that would start with you telling Vince McMahon that you didn't want to form a tag team, then telling Michael Cole that you wanted to take on anyone who they say deserved a title shot against you. After this, you would have to go to the parking lot and be victorious against whoever challenged you. Once this was done, you would have to lose a subsequent last man standing match, only for Foley to show up and announce a Hell in a Cell rematch. Win this and you could select Foley in the main game. Variations in these choices could also lead to unlocking Tajiri, Rhino, Jerry Lynn, and Spike Dudley. Once you'd managed to get a hold of all these, plus unlocked all creator wrestler parts, ability points, match types and arenas, you could also unlock Stephanie McMahon. Then, and only then, could you get a hold of the ultimate unlockable, Shane McMahon? Wait, Shane McMahon? Yeah, you had to go through all this just to play as Shane McMahon, and we applaud anyone that had the patience to do this. Number 6. Floating tables. Here's a quick one. There was a fun glitch in Just Bring It that was reported by multiple players and could be achieved when using tables during a bout. You would have to stack 2 tables on top of each other while on the entrance stage, then lay your prone opponent onto the top one. After you'd done all this, you could just push the bottom table away, which would leave the top one still in place, hovering above the ground. Now you could perform all the usual moves, including putting your opponent through it, at which point it would come crashing back down to the ground. Number 7. Special sequences. In Just Bring It story mode, you could actually access several unique sequences depending on what character you were playing as. If playing as The Undertaker, for example, Michael Cole would interview after Vince McMahon announced he would be the special guest referee at his Wrestlemania match, with The Undertaker simply saying that somebody is gonna get injured tonight. Playing through it as The Rock will see the same interview take place, but with the Great One instead responding by talking about winning the match and ending with his iconic catchphrase,
If you're some man, what The Rock is cooking.
Steve Austin would be shown instead talking to Vince directly after hearing his announcement and hugging the boss, telling him that they would always be friends, while Kurt Angle hangs around nearby in his hilarious tiny cowboy hat. Alternatively, if you were playing as Kurt Angle, you get an opportunity to reenact his famous milk truck moment after being called out by another wrestler. If playing as either of the Hardy Boys, you get a brief scene of them punching their fists together before a tag team title match. With Edge and Christian, you'd get to deliver a concerto to whomever the current tag team champions were at the time in a backstage segment. Number 8. Behind the scenes. Another fun glitch in Just Bring It is the ability to wrestle behind the stage, and no, we don't mean backstage areas, but instead some dark dimension beyond. As reported by a number of gamers, if you set up a ladder at the right place at the entrance ramp and have both characters climb it, then have one do an arm drag off the top, it will send the other inside the stage. After this, the wrestler now still outside should still run at the place their opponent has disappeared into, but should do a jumping move and fall at the last moment. If done correctly, you should roll through the wall into either the crowd or the black void, where you can continue to fight your opponent. Be warned though, while in this area if you Irish whip your opponent, it will keep running forever and you'll have to restart the game. Number 9. Cut content. Also planned at one point according to the in-game commentary clips was a dumpster match. This seemed likely at the time since Terry Funk and Mick Foley faced the New Age Outlaws at WrestleMania 14 in a dumpster match. As well as this, early promotional footage showed clips of what looked like a Last Week on Smackdown video package recreating the formation of the 2-man power trip, though disappointingly no such thing was seen in the final game. And number 10. Different ladders. In the beta or beta versions of Just Bring It, it was possible to use multiple ladders during a TLC match, and early screenshots even showed the option to use different sized ladders, such as Jeff Hardy's famous 20-foot model. You could even do unique attacks with ladders at one point, such as drop kicking them into opponents' faces, which would have been a hell of a lot of fun. Sadly, by the time the title was released, this option was gone and players had to settle for one standard issue ladder to fight with. No official word has ever come out as to why this changed, and the only thing we can think of is that it would have been too much for the final game to handle processing wise, as this was still back in the days of the PlayStation 2. It's crazy to think how far we've come given what's possible in games now. Well, that is when they work. But there you have it guys, 10 secrets and interesting facts you may not have known about SmackDown Just Bring It. Be sure to leave your comments down below, subscribe if you haven't already, follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling video game content.